Well, so the Game Awards just happened, and like every year, it seems worse than the last. But for now, let's just talk about Naughty Dog and their new game. I'm not gonna call it by its actual name, I don't even remember it. I'll just call it The Last of Us 3 in Space. So we start the trailer with the misleading tag of "From the people that brought you Crash Bandicoot and Jak and Daxter," which is extremely misleading. As you know, most of the people who worked in that company are no longer there, and because of DEI, most of the developers that made the game that you like left the company or were fired or replaced, or because of pre-woke issues that they had with the company have left on their own volition or are now in managerial position where they don't actually do much of anything. I'm not gonna name everybody from every generation, but I am going to make an effort to not just talk about the big figureheads. So let's just say that Naughty Dog is split into 3 generations. The first one was led by Jason Rubin, Andy Gavin, and Mark Cerny. The first 2 were the founders of the company. They're the guys that you know for really bringing Naughty Dog to what it is, and they left about the same time that Naughty Dog was making Jak X. They stayed a little bit, if I remember well, to oversee the development of the game, but after that they were gone. And I'm bringing up Mark Cerny for a good reason. It's that he was the lead programmer on Jak and Daxter 1, the Precursor Legacy. But since then, he still works for Sony, but from what I understand, he literally shows up once or twice a year to see if they have issues with the new hardware, and his contribution brings new development for the new hardware, so I can assess that all these new upgrades to every PlayStation console is probably at least tangentially related to him. But he basically just shows up once or twice a year. He doesn't program anymore for Naughty Dog, so the guys that made that company no longer work there or do little to no work, and I guess they just get a check and then disappear for half a year. Then there's the second generation, the people that started around Jak and Daxter 2 or 3, but they didn't have the same roles, they had lesser roles, and they were starting to make themselves known. People like the infamous Neil Druckman, Amy Hennig of the Legacy of Kain fame, and Paul Straley. Here's the thing, Neil Druckman was never good. Neil Druckman made good games because he was never left to his own design and had people keeping him in check. In this case, Amy Hennig and Paul Straley. Paul was the one who was writing the scripts for games like Uncharted and The Last of Us, along with Amy Hennig. All the dumb things that you attribute to The Last of Us 2 were supposed to be in The Last of Us 1, but Amy Hennig said, no, that's dumb, and Neil Druckman just fired her ass. Paul Straley, who also worked on the scripts, and is probably the reason why they were good in the first place along with Hennig, left to make his own company. So now you only have Neil Druckman, and as proof, all the games that are made with him as lead director with no one to keep him in check are fucking terrible, and all the horrible ideas that he had for The Last of Us 1 made it in The Last of Us 2, and now that franchise sucks, and most of Naughty Dog sucks. That new game looks awful. The main character is ethnically ambiguous. I couldn't tell who she was. I thought that it was Lev from The Last of Us 2. I showed that character to my mother. She thought that it was the Asian chick from Alien Romulus. She looks terrible. And of course, there's a white woman in the trailer, but she's handicapped, she's missing an eye. Everything looks woke and anti-human. Just as much as we have standards of beauty, they have their own standards of beauty, but they have bizarro standards, and their standards of the reverse or whatever we like. Everything that is good is bad for them. So that's why you end up with a bald chick that is so similar to every other bald chick that you can't even tell when she's Asian or when she's black, because she's so ambiguous, she's so bland, she has no personality of her own. I hate games like this. We both know these games, they're not, we talk about the phantom audience, but we know it's not about the phantom audience. It's about a bunch of preachy pseudo-intellectuals who have luxury beliefs. They have beliefs that they don't actually put into practice, or when they do put into practice, they live in ivory towers and gated communities, so they don't get to live the consequences of their beliefs, and we have to, and that's why we don't like it. But they get insulted. How come you don't want our beliefs? Are you a bad person? But here's the thing, they live in an utopia, but the utopia is as bad as the dystopia, because too much is like not enough. And if you were an actual person in the actual real world, you'd realize that yes, you have good intentions, but good intentions are paving the way to hell. The rest of the Game Awards was not much better. I could go into detail with every game that was showed up, but I can pretty much resume what happened in 3 simple statements. First off, there were games that looked like a goy slop, and even the ones that didn't look awful didn't give you any gameplay, just trailers, basically ads. Cause on the first Berserker or whatever it's called, it looks good, but again, second trailer, but no gameplay. There was gameplay in the first, what little of it there was, but now you're giving me a CGI trailer. Who fucking cares? Secondly, there were a lot of just the usual bad jokes and just presentations that you don't give a fuck about. Who cares about Snoop Dogg? But I'd say the worst had to be the puppets. The puppets had those what I call chud jokes. They make fun of people like you and me, the chuds, but the thing is that lampshading the things that are bad doesn't solve the things that are bad. Ha ha ha, we know Jeff Keighley is friends with Kojima, but Kojima doesn't know. But that's the problem. It's that it's true, and it's funny because it's true, but it's not funny because you address the problems, but you don't solve the problems. Yes, we get it. You're aware of our criticism, but you don't actually take our criticism to heart. And the final problem was that even the games that did look good, I couldn't care less about them because they all had some kind of asterisk. So there was a new Onimusha, but it's Capcom. There's a new Okami, and they even brought back Hideki Kamiya, but that seems like a lot of desperation. Did they kidnap his family to force him back? I don't fucking know. There's a new Turok, but it doesn't look like Turok. It's a third-person shooter. First-person shooters have to be the single gameplay type that has maintained the same amount of popularity throughout the years, and somehow you decide to make it a third-person shooter. It doesn't look that good. There wasn't really a game that I liked because it looked like gory slop with no gameplay. There were a lot of bad jokes, and even the things that do interest me add a lot of asterisks, and I'm not sure if I'm going to play them. I don't need Capcom to fiddle me for the 100th time for me to understand that Capcom is now no good. They've been infiltrated. We all know about that document. They've said that they want games that look more like The Last of Us. The one singular thing that was actually good was the new 2D Ninja Gaiden game made by Dotemu. The same people who made Streets of Rage 4 and made the new Ninja Turtles game. So I know it's going to be good. I know there's not going to be any politics. But here's the problem. Why is the best game in all of this small budget game or mid-budget game made by a small team? I mean, it proves that 2D is not obsolete. It's like animation in the realm of cinema. People think that it's a thing of the past for kids, but no, that game was the only thing that actually looked good. There was a trailer that was well animated, and then there was gameplay that looked really promising. You can kind of have an idea of what's going to happen in that game, and it looked really good. And the release date is not too far off, summer 2025. So it's actually a good-looking, realistic project. But unfortunately, that was the one thing that was good in, what, 2 hours? Video games are officially dead. Fuck, the internet is dead. The Game Awards had the fucking gall to have a post where they asked people to rate them from A to D, and most of the votes were A or B, which is a lie. You goddamn know that most people did not like the Game Awards. You can tell that those were bot accounts or shills. We've reached a point where even normies don't care about the new Naughty Dog games, and you know that the average IQ has gone down throughout the years, but even the normies who buy constantly the Goy Slop, even they don't care about The Last of Us. They're probably going to buy The Witcher 4 because, yeah, they're that dumb, but gaming is officially dead. Now, gaming is just a bunch of grifters, musicians, actors, wannabe movie makers who make games, or interactive movies, should I say, but there is no actual game developer. They all left or got fired, and most of the people who are into gaming are not actually gamers. They're like my coworkers, fucking dumb people who do the same mistakes over and over again, who are only interested in the superficial aspects of gaming. They don't want a learning curve, they don't want to be challenged, they want everything to be easy, they want that reptilian brain to be stimulated, they want to have the gratification now. Which is ironic, because games got popular because of how special they were, because of the difficulty, because they were made by different people from different walks of life. And now, people get into video games, but they want to lower the level. They want to lower it to their level, and their level is really low. And yes, you should have media that has good entry-level things for people that get into it, but the average person doesn't want to go to a higher level. They want to stay in a comfortable zone, and that's why we now have garbage like the Game Awards. That's why we have fucking garbage games, cinematic games, microtransaction games like Call of Duty, where you have to fucking buy the interface to look at your score. It's fucking terrible. The consequences of letting normies into the video game space has been terrible for the gaming industry. Another year, another Game Awards. It was terrible, and I'm not looking forward to next year. I absolutely cannot wait for the video game crash, if there's going to be one, because that form of media needs to die. It is awful.